Hey guys, Yuri and Veronica here with you today. Today we're talking about the use of a hook, or more specific, not so much the use of it as the mechanics behind the hook. So first of all, why are we picking this topic? And the reason why we pick this topic is because a lot of people have been asking about the mechanics associated with the hook. And there's a lot of confusion often that happens, especially with beginner students, as to how the power of the hook is generated, how the hips are engaged, and so on. So before we get into all this, let's just quickly define what a hook is, and then we'll progress slowly into the mechanics behind it and so on. So what is a hook? So first of all, a hook is a strike that comes from a kind of like a circular action around a certain barrier. So imagine I have a person here, so Veronica is kind of like the person that I'm attacking. She has her hands up and I need to get around this barrier. So I can't just strike forward because she has a certain guard. I need to get around, or I need to get around. So this is the basic idea of a hook, is that it's coming around the barrier, being able to reach different targets like the chin, the side of the head, and so on. And really, if you think about being no gloves, like in the street fighting, there's different striking surfaces. You have the palm, you have the fist, turning the fist, and so on. There's many different variations. But the point of today's video is not to talk about these variations, but to talk about how the hips are responsible for the power of the hook. Now let's begin with this a little bit. So traditionally, when you look at like boxing, for example, boxers are taught to always rotate the front foot when you throw in your front hook. So for example, this motion, that action. So my front heel turns, this turns my hip turns my shoulder, and now comes the hook. Some mechanics overall about the hook other than the hip. Elbow has to be quite high. Elbow has to have a bend in it, and here as I'm striking, I'm driving my hook through the target. Elbow remains bent, and then I recoil back in the same way I came. So now the reason why in boxing world, and pretty much self-defense world in general, people are taught to rotate their front foot as they throw the front hook is because it ensures that the hips are turning. And like everything in all strikes, the hips are the driving force behind the strike. So you're really getting the power from your hips. But there are exceptions to this, and really sometimes not just exceptions, sometimes it's not the right way to think about the foot. It's more likely to think the hip. The foot is just a tool for you to turn your hip, but the hip itself is the driving force. Let me explain this. If I want to reach Veronica here, and I'm relatively close to her, here turning my front heel is absolutely right. So like this type of strike reaches the target quite well. But if I was a little bit further, and now I turn, I cannot reach because I'm putting my weight back in this leg, and my front heel turns out, and I'm not reaching. And the more I reach, the less of a hook this becomes more of a straight punch, which is completely different. So how do I reach her from here? Well, I reach by leaning forward. So now I haven't moved my feet, because of course I can also step, but this is irrelevant to this. I lean forward, and as I lean, I turn my back heel in. And now look again, hips turn. But now my front foot is planted, it's holding my weight, it cannot turn. It's the back heel that rotates in, and I still get the whip-in action of the hip, allowing my hook to come in. So again, here's a perfect exception. My hook is a hook, it's still a hook, it still works really well, but I'm no longer turning on the front foot, it's the back heel that now is turning. So why that? Because again, like I said from the beginning, it's not so much the feet, it's the hips. The feet is just a tool for you to first learn how to turn your hips, but the hips are the driving force. Now here's some other exceptions. Sometimes we see students being very good about turning the foot but not engaging the hip. So for example, from a little bit of frontal position, instead of that which turns the hip, they do this, but the hip hasn't turned, so like this motion. So my foot turns, but the hip stays in place. There's no use to this. So although they're turning their foot, they're almost doing like we tell them to do, they're not getting the power for the hook because their feet are not turning the right part of their body. Again, it's not so much about the feet, it's more about the hips. A perfect way to demonstrate this is to do something we call explosive hook or jumping hook. And this is a very unique hook. It's not so much used, honestly, for self-defense. It's more just a tool for you to understand how your hips are driving the hook, how they're behind the strike, and so on. So what is an explosive hook? The idea is like this. So I have a target. So the target right now is this hand. But I'm a little bit further out, so I cannot reach. Even if I lean, I cannot reach. So I kind of jump into this. So I'm jumping into this hook. So what's happening is my back leg is driving my way forward. As it's driving my way forward, now I turn my hips. And as I turn my hips, I transfer all my energy. My shoulders are now rotating, my body's behind the strike, and now I have a lot of power to the strike. Now again, like I said, it's not a very useful, to a certain degree, strike for self-defense purposes, but it does reinforce the idea of the hips. So how do we train this? Now, one way to train this is quite a unique scenario, but using the chair as a tool. All right, guys, so now we're going to use the chair to demonstrate the effectiveness of the chair itself as a tool to drive the hips when we're striking with a hook. And this is what we mentioned earlier. So first of all, here I'm going to wear gloves, Veronica is going to have some focus mitts, and let me first set up the scenario. Now, again, it's not such a self-defense scenario, it's just a drill. It's just a drill that gets you more comfortable exploding with your hips and exploding with your legs, and really synchronizing the actions of your legs and the hips to get a more effective hook into place. So first of all, I'm going to be seated in the chair. So this is my position. Now, this is kind of hitting up on some self-defense principles. When we seated in the chair, really we kind of sit rather comfortably. We're not waiting for any bad things to happen to us, or there's something for us to strike or anything like this. So usually our feet are in front of us. So in order for me to get up quickly and efficiently from a chair, and I'm not going to get into all the details because it could be a whole separate video, what I'm thinking about doing is driving my feet under me, so this motion. And as I drive my feet under me, I contract my core, kind of lean forward to get my momentum going forward, and now I jump up, or step up, or just stand up, whatever I need to do to get into a good fighting position. So this is just the basic overview of how to get up from a chair. But what we're going to do is slightly different. Instead of jumping or getting up into a basic fighting position, I'm going to jump in with a hook. And this is what I'm going to show you. Okay, so what are we doing in this video? So here's what we're doing. From a seated position, I collapse my legs back like I explained earlier, sending my chest forward, and here I jump. The jump comes from the power from the back leg. So my right leg is the back leg in this case. And as I jump, I push my way forward and I turn my hips. And again, here the principle is don't think which foot turns, think rotate your hips. And the reason why this is so important, because my feet are busy driving my weight towards the target. So my feet are driving my weight, hips are rotating my weight. So again, from this position, 1, 2. And as I do this, now comes the hook. So the hips are allowing my hook to get power. So again, so as I'm doing this, I'm transferring my weight a little bit more forward. I'm rotating my hips and my feet are moving. And the back leg is giving me the power to propel my weight, and the hips are giving me the power to transfer the weight towards the side of the strike. So this drill, although like I said, it's not really a self-defense scenario, it's a way to build up the explosiveness of overall body movement, explosiveness of strikes, but also it gives you the ability to really engage your hips, which is really the whole focus of a hook itself. So again, when you think about hook, don't think so much which foot turns, think turn the hip. And depending on the circumstances, you'll either see that one foot will turn a bit more than the other, or sometimes both feet will turn to a certain degree, but it's more think hips are the driving force behind the strike, not the feet. Thanks very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like us and follow us on YouTube as much as you can. Check out our Instagram and Facebook page, and come see us in person. Thank you.